America lost its independence arguably around 1871 when it filed for its second bankruptcy. President Lincoln and his Civil War efforts put America in debt, and some say on purpose. The Civil War wasn't about slavery or states' rights, as was written in our school books. It was about giving the United States back to the crown as it was designed to be. The early settlers, or pilgrims, were chosen to set up camp in America, not to be free from the king, but to exploit the Native Americans, just as the crown had done to the East. The West played an important role for the Jesuits to establish 2 world wars, according to Albert Pike, to bring about worldwide control through central banks. Religion was used to justify the slaughter of hundreds of tribes across America. One could argue the settlers did the dirty work for the crown by using American independence as their justification. The crown found a way to retrieve an entire nation without ever having to fight the natives. After the land was surveyed and most of the tribes disbanded, the Civil War was created to put the new America under debt to the king. The Civil War ended our independence through the Treaty of Washington under maritime international law. The Crown loaned the money to the United States with conditions. Create a corporation governed by a foreign state called Washington, D.C., to disband the rights of the states and enslave the American people into a debt system. This gave the Crown rights to tax without representation. Unbeknownst to the people, it was a slow progression without any hesitation, as the Civil War was so atrocious that the people just didn't want to fight back. Washington became the international corporation entity that controlled both Canada and America. All import and export goods, to and from, were taxed by the Crown. But the purpose of America was a new central banking system backed by new resources. First, it was gold, then oil, and then nothing as it is right now. The Federal Reserve Act of 1913 was passed while Congress and the majority were celebrating Christmas. The second bankruptcy of the United States of 1871 was soon becoming solvent, so the central bankers created a plan to keep the people a debt nation by initiating the Federal Reserve. This made sure that by 1933, when the bankruptcy was over, the Crown could then enact the income tax law, backed by the Internal Revenue Service as the tax collectors. Rumors of world war and broken promises by carefully selected presidents continued the debt slavery system for another 70 years, or until the year 1999. World War I and II sealed the debt system for good, giving the bankers almost a century to continue enslaving the people. The Social Security scam was introduced as a slave number where each American was promised a retirement using their own funds. If an American invested their own in bonds or CDs instead of relying on Social Security, a forced savings program, they would have triple the amount in retirement with a solid cushion to pass down. But the Khazars made sure that the government itself never paid for any of the retirement and created a lottery scheme to keep the people poor and get less at retirement. And to make sure that less people get it, they continue to raise the age limit. In 1999, 2 men by the name of Russell J. Gould and David Wynn Miller teamed up to bypass Washington, D.C.'s pyramid scheme by capturing the Title IV flag and the Postmaster General position. They saw on paper that America's bankruptcy was ending, which means we could be free from the Crown. They filed the paperwork, captured the Title IV flag, and submitted the documents to the United Nations. Since there was no land to give this new country as the Crown owned all of America, they chose the land underneath the courthouses worldwide. The United Nations granted their request, and on paper, currently Russell holds the title Postmaster General, which means he controls all tax and tariffs of shipments to and from the United States, including the land underneath each courthouse. This loophole was then attacked by Donald Rumsfeld, as he and the CIA went to war with Russell and his partner. Unfortunately, Washington, D.C. won, and Russell started the current sovereignty movement, bypassing the current maritime law system. What's kept secret are the 3 stars on Washington, D.C.'s flag. They represent the Tri-City Jesuit rule under the Khazarian bloodlines: Washington, London, and the Vatican. All 3 are their own country, represented by the central bankers that control the West under a corporation instead of a country. Since 1999, thanks to Russell and David's work, America never filed for bankruptcy to legally keep the citizens under the control of the Khazars. So they have been operating without a flag, with a phony corporation and a country ever since. The Khazars needed to legally tax and enslave the public, but lost their Federal Reserve value, which sparked the new currency written by the NSA called cryptocurrency. Created first by Satoshi Nakamoto, which is a pseudonym anagram for Secret Clever Foundation, was tested in public with great success. The NSA picked Chris Larsen to pitch Ripple's XRP to the World Economic Forum as a new central bank digital currency, which at first was turned down. Ripple later then was awarded to be the next cryptocurrency to replace the Federal Reserve and FedNow, which replaces SWIFT. The Khazars bypassed the bankruptcy of America, but still needed to legally control the peasants. The internet was finally waking up to the masses and the massive information and the true history of the bankers, and they panicked. During the presidency of Donald Trump, they embraced a pandemic of influenza, as a way to change the DNA of people from human to something else. To classify a human being would be natural blood before a brand new technology could change DNA through messenger agent. The people were pushed by fear and mandates to once again give up their sovereignty to the Khazars on paper again, but this time backed by the World Health Organization, who now tracks people via pure or mRNA blood. Now, through international law, the Khazars own the vaccinated because they created the patent to turn human beings from human to a walking money-making machine via crypto. The perfect tax system using climate change and other things as the excuses to add or remove currency from one's wallet to justify usury. This is Agenda 2030, where the vaccinated has no human rights because they technically aren't human anymore and own nothing and will be happy. They tricked you once again, but instead of a civil war, they changed your DNA. Now they no longer need to profit off resources in what is today called consumerism. They now profit off your contribution to society. The purebloods, whom don't take the messenger agent, are now the enemy of the state, and the Khazars are at war with them. Since World War I, the bankers under the guise of Judaism, armed with Kabbalism, have completely taken over the world and keeps the people thinking they are continuously seeking a new world order. This keeps the critical thinkers going down rabbit holes like Q and Anonymous. Nothing can stop what is coming because the Khazars are in complete control. This is why Israel can commit genocide in plain public view. They rewrite history and continue pumping out indoctrination to indoctrinate our children, who learn everything opposite of the truth. The universities, corporations, institutions, and governments are all in on it. Now, on the table is depopulation. Science is settled. Thus, the Khazars need to remove 7 billion people from this planet. A slow death, where the population doesn't even notice. Politicians are now actors, keeping the people divided. There is no country. They distract us with rabbit holes and research, and sometimes unalive those that get too close to the truth, like Janet Osabard, whom wrote and produced 2 documentaries called The Fall of the Cabal. That is, unless the documentary was released on purpose by the Khazars to keep us talking and doing nothing. Since 2/3 of Americans are on antidepressants prescribed by doctors instead of psychologists, it leaves us docile, complacent, and ignorant. We are overdosed because we have a Second Amendment and mostly armed. Only the Khazar guards are allowed such luxury of freedom. Hope this catches you up.